Something about the Nelson area seems to attract people interested in alternative lifestyles. At some stage in their search, most of them end up here, Riverside Community. For 50 years, Riverside's been putting into practice the ideals of social equality and communal living. Community farmland and orchards support a diverse collection of individuals who have given up material assets and the pursuit of individual wealth for the shared spiritual bond of community.
When I was in suburbia, I had a house and a car and a lot of real estate, too much really for one person, and I felt guilty about it, and as if I ought to share it, but it's not too easy to share it with your neighbours. you don't know whether they're fit or suitable or would use it properly. And I began to investigate, looking at other ways of living, communal, living in a community, and began to hear about Riverside.
I grew up here, and I have a great attachment, like most farmers' sons, if you like, who grow up on a farm. I have a great attachment to the land, and this means a lot to me. And so that's a double reason, really, why I'm here. I'm also very, I've grown up with the ideals of Riverside and still hold to them as well.
That's for the trees that we have.
For some, Riverside's a stopover on the path of self-discovery. For others, a comfortable destination to last a lifetime.
And then we'll head off up to the Ebro block. And
each of Riverside's 70 residents has their own reason for living here.
Well, I support the idea of the community for a start, and the pacifism and the socialist aspects and the organics.
Well, the basic ideals of the community initially attracted me here. That is the belief in resolving conflict in non-violent ways and holding everything common.
Riverside members reject the label of commune. They're a community whose shared work ethic has helped build a strong economic base for their ideals. Each member works a 40-hour week to help manage 200 hectares of communal land near Motueka. Orcharding has been the mainstay of the community's economy since it was founded during the Second World War. Today, apple orchards bring in more than $100,000 a year, but the community had small beginnings. 50 years ago, a group of Christian pacifists sought refuge from the war, working together on an orchard donated by Hubert and Marion Holdaway. They wanted to establish a peaceful, independent community and reject the conflict and competitiveness of the world around them. They were conscientious objectors and, like Norm Cole, were imprisoned for their pacifist beliefs.
When the appeal board came to your district, you would be notified and you appeared before them. There were three people on it, and they asked a series of questions, and you answered the best you could, and then they decided whether you were sincere or not. You could have witnesses to testify on your behalf if you wished. We could never understand how they arrived at their conclusions, which were always arbitrary and unrelated to the case that they'd heard. Towards the end of the war, after we met in Barangapo for 2.5 years, or maybe 3 years, we thought we would stage a protest to try and get our status cleared up, that we didn't think it was fair that we should be labelled bludgers and so on. And so we decided we'd strike and refuse to work. And so as a result of that, we got put into the punishment cells.
How were you treated in there?
Bread and water, that's all you get. 3 slices of bread and water to drink. And in the daytime, your bedding is all taken away, your blankets are taken away. You get your clothes and socks, no boots. And the only thing you're allowed is part of this is the Bible.
Christian pacifists were ostracised by society, but Norm's young fiancée Joy found soulmates amongst the fledgling Riverside community. When the war ended, Joy and Norm Cole joined Riverside. They've lived there ever since.
I think we were all very idealistic in those days, and we thought we were going to help to create, at least in a small segment, a different kind of society, a less capitalistic society and a more caring society, and one based on shared effort and the pooling of resources, not only your material resources, but the pooling of your skills and your abilities for the common good. It was a great strain on friendships and a great strain on family relationships too. If young people wanted to come here and join, and their families wondered what on earth they were doing and what future there was for them, and thought, what are you doing coming to join a group like this? You won't be making any money and you won't be getting yourself established in your own right, and that was very hard for people to accept.
Cooperative living seemed radical and attracted much suspicion and hostility. But inside the community, life was pretty normal, even conservative in some respects. Early members were staunch Methodists who lived by a strict moral code. But in 1972, Riverside dropped its requirement that all new members should be practicing Christians. It was a fundamental change, but it ensured the community's survival and growth. Riverside's economic stability has always been a drawcard for new members. Joining means opting into an established system. Chris has lived in Christian charismatic communities and non-religious communes too. But Riverside seemed to offer something more.
It was a going concern rather than surviving off the dole and maybe illicit cropping. Its philosophical basis also appealed to the fact that there wasn't any great amount of dogma. You didn't have to take a particular philosophical or spiritual position.
When Chris and his partner Lynn arrived here in January, they were drug addicts. At Riverside, they've had a new baby and begun a new life. After 3 years of unemployment, they've joined Riverside as probationary members, with a year or two to decide if they'll stay. Community support has helped Chris and Lynn in their fight against addiction. Together with their baby and Lynn's 6-year-old daughter Hazel, they've found a family home here. But at first, Riverside seemed almost too good to be true.
Everyone was so nice, and I thought all the conflicts were hidden from me, not purposely, but I just didn't see them. I always suspected the worst, and that's one of my faults. I suspect the worst, but when I start to see that they were just people, there was conflicts between individuals, and they disagreed over quite a bit. And when the conflicts became real, they weren't nearly as bad as my suspicions and things. So it felt much safer and much better.
How's Hazel, your other child, finding the switch to this environment? Obviously, it's quite different from your lifestyle in Christchurch.
Yes, she's a lot happier, and she's settled down a lot more, and I've found that I just feel a lot happier about her going out, and she can go out and wander around and visit friends and things. I don't have to worry about where she is. Like the streets of Christchurch weren't the best environment.
Riverside's always believed in offering a home to those needing help. For most, it's a temporary haven. Others, like Chris and Lynn, become valued community members. Riverside Community has no leader. Decisions are arrived at by consensus during weekly community meetings.
Would be prepared to shift into that house, which then frees up Chris and Jean's house, which may be suitable for Michael and Sabina.
Then we only would have to put a little kitchen unit on and nothing else. And just one wall.
Both the two, I'll call them family rooms, that's what we call them, the two family rooms on the western end.
Discussion and debate goes on until the meeting is clearly agreed. And with a group of strong individuals living together, debate sometimes rages into the night. Kath Francis, a second-generation Riversider, believes community decision-making makes change a slow process.
There's so many things, there's so many things in any issue. We can think we're talking about one subject, But because our lives are so intertwined with each other in everything, in our relationships and our social work and our every part of our lives is so intertwined that we're usually talking about 5 or 6 things at once. And it's sometimes very difficult to actually make the decision on the issue that you're talking about.
Outside community meetings, Riverside Life is highly organised. Members are assigned work and receive an equal weekly allowance of $57. The community provides vegetables, cheap meat, a house with phone and power, and access to a community carpool. Peter Payne's in charge of Riverside's shop. Part of his work is delivering supplies and company to older members of the community.
Hi, Tora.
Hello, Peter.
Is all the shopping?
All the goodies.
Tora Kolf and her late husband Kees emigrated from the Netherlands in the 50s.
A bag of those lemons.
No mail?
No mail today, just me.
Ah, not a sausage.
Not a sausage.
Ah, well, I have to live without it. Hopefully tomorrow.
Bench for you?
Yes.
Tora and Kees shared Riverside's pacifist beliefs, but couldn't afford to show it.
The feeling against people who had not gone to war was very, very strong. And therefore, I was warned by our boss, Kees worked for Robinson, and in a very kind way he said, don't forget that they are still outcasts because they have not gone to war. And if Kees needs work, you know, when he's finished with me, and it will be very difficult for him to find work somewhere else if you are in contact with the Riverside.
Tell me about the early years here, the rigidity with things like alcohol.
Drinking together was not acceptable. Alcohol was not accepted. And one day I remember we were sitting in the old house around the kitchen table and sharing a glass of beer. And then somebody said, "Help, here's Hubert Holdaway coming up the road." And he never came to see us. And I said, or Kees said, "Quick, quick, glasses under the table." And the glasses disappeared under the table, so that when Hubert walked in, he would not have been too upset.
After orcharding, dairy farming is Riverside's second major income earner. Like other Nelson farmers, they've been hit by 2 years of drought. This season, they've reduced their herd by 20 to 170 cows. Riverside farm staff have the luxury of weekends off. Bud Yong Hill works part-time on the dairy farm to help fill a 7-day roster. But Colin Cole is farm manager. Colin was born and raised at Riverside. He left to train as a teacher, but soon returned to join as a member in his own right. He'd never milked a cow in his life, but 19 seasons later, Colin's in charge of an efficient farming operation that combines dairying with bull beef fattening. Phillips is a paid employee of the community. Martin was born at Riverside, the son of founding members who left in the 50s because they felt the community wasn't moving with the times. 9 years ago, Martin returned to Riverside with his own family. They'd sold their Auckland home and were keen to settle here. As usual, they joined on probation. But becoming full community members was a big step to take. After 3 years, the crunch finally came.
We had to make a decision then as to whether or not to commit our assets, which is a requirement of full members. And at that point we realised that it basically cut too many options for us. We had other things we wanted to do with our lives eventually, and without money it's very difficult.
Do you think that requirement that you give up your assets influences the membership base here?
Yes, I do, very much. When we first came, we were the first new members for quite some time, quite a number of years, and shortly after that several other families came, and it turned out that the only people that stayed and became members were people that didn't have assets, basically.
Full membership of Riverside Community involves a personal contract. Like probationary members, children also have time to decide if they wish to make a total commitment to the community. Riverside supports them until adulthood. They're given a personal weekly allowance, and paid holiday jobs are available if they want them. But children of members are not members in their own right. Bryce Pullen's mother joined Riverside when he was 11 years old. Bryce believes teenagers get a good deal at Riverside.
You have a lot more freedom to do what you want, and the adults help. You know, if you have a goal or something, they support it generally, and also the ability to be able to move out, you know, and experience living with different people or flatting, that sort of thing, is also really good.
Are you planning to stay on here once you finish school and become a full member yourself?
Well, I think I'll go to tertiary education or something, you know, university or something, and then once I've finished there, it'll depend on what sort of job availabilities there are, and I will come back at some stage. I don't know how long for.
Riverside depends on its members' participation and commitment to their community. The group bond is emphasised at communal meals held 3 times a week. The whole community takes turns at preparation, and there's a subtle pressure to attend. Active community participation is encouraged. Passive compliance is not. Individuality is seen as a group asset at Riverside.
I think that being a strong individual probably makes a very good community member, although it sounds like a contradiction. But, and of course it might make for a certain amount of stress and tension too, as lots of strong individuals get together. But the very fact that they are strong individuals ought to give them the resources and the capability of being able to work out a satisfactory compromise, if you like to call it, or a satisfactory solution for their mutual, preferably for their mutual benefit.
We hope we get people who've got ideas that, you know, who can sharpen their wits on, and without a bit of debate about things, you sort of stagnate, you know.
Riverside's development has seen its community church become a meeting and eating hall. Religion no longer binds the community together. Instead, each member's shared commitment to their vision of Riverside is their bond.
I don't think I've ever seen it as a lifetime commitment. It's a commitment for sure. I committed totally to being here, and I think it's a great place for my family to grow up, for my kids to grow up in this environment, to see these values that we believe in and live in this way. But who knows? I don't.
I don't know yet. They've got 2 years to prove themselves to me.
Because he had them until Wednesday.
In 50 years, Riverside's attracted hundreds of prospective members. Some end up just passing through. Those who do stay don't all expect to be here for a lifetime.
Today I still want to be here. Maybe next week I won't.
If a Buddhist group was forming, and I would think seriously about that, but it would have to be pretty good to make me move from here.
Although Riverside's membership is constantly changing, some family links span 3 generations. It may be communally owned, but it's also a family home.
I can see myself living here for a good many years yet, as long as I'm still getting the satisfaction from doing the things that I want to do and the way that I want to do them.
Riverside community considers itself a family, and like any other family, life can sometimes be harmonious and other times full of friction.
You're not setting out to create a bland, lovely group. What you're setting out to create is a group of people that have lots of, you hope, strong ideals, who intend to work together to the best of their ability to create something together which will be for their mutual, for our mutual development as a group and their mutual